It's time to have your say because it's time for the Q&A. Welcome to AskSCW, answering your questions in the wrestling community. You may be watching on YouTube. Please like, share and subscribe. You may be listening on podcast form as well. Wherever you are listening today or watching, thank you for checking out the channel. Really do appreciate you guys getting involved. Lots of questions coming up today here on AskSCW on WWE, NXT. We've got AEW, Impact Wrestling, even New Japan Pro Wrestling will be coming up today on the show. And we'll be kicking things off, of course, with Royal Rumble. The Royal Rumble season is here. It's just 1 week away. Lots of questions will be kicking off with the Royal Rumble to kick off today's Ask SCW. If you want to get involved on the next show, then just leave the hashtag AskSCW. You can leave a comment on YouTube, or you can follow me on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, all be coming up on your screen right now if you're watching on YouTube. In the description, it will be if you're listening on podcast form. So thank you very much to everyone checking out. Let's get straight in with the first question today here for Ask SCW. And our first question this week comes from Ovi Manise from the Hard Hitting Wrestling Show. Make sure you're going to check him out now on YouTube and podcast form as well. He wants to know who will win the men's and women's Royal Rumbles. He's given a few names here. For the men, potentially Seth Rollins, Shinsuke Nakamura, Daniel Bryan or others. Perhaps in the women's, we've got Bianca Belair, Bayley, Ronda Rousey, Alexa Bliss or others. A host of names there, and I have to say that this has to be the most open Royal Rumble in years. Honestly, for both men's and the women's, it's hard to call right now who I think will be the winners of both matches, but I think you give some good suggestions there. I think that when you look at the men's, I think it could be a hat full of names really, but I will also say with the women's I'll start with, I think I can narrow that down to a few more at this particular moment. I think with Alexa Bliss putting her name in the hat this week, she undoubtedly becomes a favourite, and I think the only potential winner at the moment from the current Raw side, if you were to ask me. I think Bianca Belair is a favourite from SmackDown. I think Bayley has an outside chance of SmackDown as well from the current main roster crop. Elsewhere, I would say that I don't think Charlotte Flair will win the Royal Rumble this year. She had her time last year. I think we will get someone else, but it could be one or two outsiders that could be. You mentioned Ronda Rousey yourself there, which I think has a potential to happen. Of course, she does have a contract with WWE until after WrestleMania this year, and with fans being in attendance, could she surprise everyone, shock the world, and come in as the number 30 entrant and win the Rumble for the women? It certainly would be surprising if she did so. Rhea Ripley is a name I want to throw out there. She has not been on NXT since the New Year's Evil show where she did lose to Raquel Gonzalez in a last woman standing match. She's not a part of the Dusty Tag Team Classic. She's been nowhere to be seen. I think she's coming to the main roster. She was supposed to be at WrestleMania last year. It wouldn't surprise me if she was at WrestleMania this year, again in the Raymond James Stadium. Remember, she went to go and see that stadium. They did a video package for her where she was going to be competing in this stadium, and it felt like that was taken away from her. I think WWE will want to give her that moment back, that we are going back to that stadium. We've got a two-night WrestleMania there. I think she is going to be there in some format, and I think she could do so potentially by being the first NXT women's superstar to win a Royal Rumble match. In fact, it would be the first time ever an NXT superstar would win the Royal Rumble match, should that go down that way. Looking at the men's there, I mean, you mentioned Seth Rollins could be a nice surprise return there. Shinsuke Nakamura definitely seems to be an up-and-coming potential superstar, in the rankings with his, face turn, it feels. Daniel Bryan seems to be a favourite. Other names I'd like to throw in the hat that I think have potential. Big E is one a lot of people are talking about. Keith Lee is another one people are talking about. And I think as well, we have to look at the potentials of people that could return in this match. I did a video on potential superstars that could come back during this Rumble match. The Fiend has not been anywhere to be seen. Would be a big surprise if he was to do so. I do think potentially Braun Strowman will return in the Royal Rumble this year. And as well as that, what about the likes of Brock Lesnar? If he was to make a return to come in at WrestleMania, maybe Brock versus Roman Reigns is a match that we could get at WrestleMania this year, with Paul Heyman being on the other side rather than being on Brock Lesnar's side. One other name that would be a real outside bet that could happen. What about John Cena? He's been linked now to being back at WrestleMania this year. That's meant to be almost a lock if you believe WrestleVotes on Twitter. That certainly would be interesting. What if he was to come back and win the Rumble and Cena would have a clear path to go to WrestleMania, try and win that 17th World Championship? Certainly lots of contenders. I feel hard to give my real prediction away right now, as the predictions video will be coming out on the channel in a couple of days' time. On Tuesday, I will be dropping the full Royal Rumble predictions video. But right now, I'll give you what I think are my top 2 or 3 contenders of each. For the Women's Royal Rumble right now, I think I have to look and say that Alexa Bliss and Bianca Belair are 2 favourites. If you look at one from Raw and one from SmackDown, Rhea Ripley, if she is to come up, I think would be awesome to win the Royal Rumble. I would love to see that happen. On the men's side of things, and I really am stretching to look here, Daniel Bryan really did sell me this week on SmackDown. I think Daniel Bryan is going to be there or thereabouts when it comes to the Royal Rumble this year. I can see him definitely being the journeyman, but I wouldn't be surprised if we do get an outsider that comes in to win the men's Royal Rumble match. I certainly wouldn't look past that at this point. I don't think they don't seem so obvious, but I also feel that there's so many big names that are currently not on TV that I do feel one of them, if they were to come back, shock the world and win the Rumble, certainly is not, out of the realms of possibility. Straight Edge Joshua, our next question now. Can you name a sleeper pick for the Rumble? Someone that isn't expected? Well, I suppose that falls in with a lot of the surprise returns that we just mentioned in the last question. Like I said, Rhea Ripley could be a potential there for the women's. For the men's, you're looking at the likes of Braun Strowman, maybe The Fiend. Brock Lesnar, I think, would really do it, and John Cena. I did mention as well for the women's, Ronda Rousey in the last question as well. But for the actual sleeper ones on the roster, I think Shinsuke Nakamura would be a sleeper one because he's won the Royal Rumble before. But to actually see him do it a second time, I think would shock many, especially great to see how he's been booked at the start of this year. But I do think it would be a big surprise if he was to win the Rumble again. Another name that I want to give a shout out to on this question is Cesaro. And my reasoning for it is Cesaro's getting momentum at the right time. I arguably would say that in the last couple of weeks, Cesaro has more momentum than anybody else. The pinfall beating Daniel Bryan, and this past week as well beating Dolph Ziggler. He's getting more promo time. It feels things are falling into place nicely for Cesaro at the right time. And for me, I feel that makes him kind of like a very outside bet for the Rumble. But I'd like to see it. I mean, the guy can speak 5 languages. He can do everything in the ring. He's entertaining as well. Why not? Why could we not have Cesaro win the Royal Rumble? I think that his time is due to be pushed further up the card. And he is a name, if you believe the rumour mill, that when people were saying new stars that we could push to the top, unanimously, Cesaro was one of them. So I'd like to see it happen. I don't think it will happen, but if you want a real outside bet for someone that is on the main roster right now, that is on weekly TV every week, he certainly would be one of them. One other one I'm going to throw out there, Jey Uso, because Jey Uso would be very interesting to see. The fact that he says he would go to Raw and then go and challenge their champion, and that the Bloodline can take over the whole of WWE. That would be a fascinating storyline to watch, and would actually, for me, would improve Monday Night Raw instantly to have that storyline going on both shows. The fact as well that Jey Uso thinks that he would perhaps have that title shot when maybe Roman Reigns would want to take that shot away from him, and we could get Roman versus Drew at WrestleMania. Now that for me also would be quite fascinating. So that for me is a sleeper pick, one that I don't see happening, but with storyline implications, certainly fascinates me. Next question is coming from the kid, Mikey Wilkes, and he will ask SCW how Bray Wyatt will return if it is at the Royal Rumble. Interesting question. I really like this one because I'm going to do fantasy booking on this channel this week, and I'm actually going to book the men's Royal Rumble from start to finish, the whole thing, entry 1 to 30, how I'd put the entrance order, how I would book the storylines in the matches, obviously the winner, surprise entrance, the lot. So for me, I'm looking forward to doing that video. But one thing I will tell you is that I think The Fiend will return in the Royal Rumble. Certainly will do in my fantasy booking as well. I think you should hold it off for the Rumble, perhaps as maybe a surprise entrant, or more than likely, perhaps someone is due to come to the ring, but as they're coming to the ring to take on Randy Orton, who's on his own in the ring, perhaps he's cleared the field he's got to this point. I think, as say, someone that's perhaps less thought of in the company, let's say, can have their Curtis Axel moment where they think they have never been eliminated for the Royal. They're walking down the ringway and the lights go out. You get that sort of, part where the Fiend is coming in. He's attacking someone then who's meant to be entering the Royal Rumble with the mandible claw. He comes into the ring. He takes advantage of Randy Orton, puts the mandible claw on Orton. He throws Orton out of the Rumble. Of course, he's not in the Rumble, so he can then go off and do his own business. the ring is empty for the next entrant in the ring. That's how I think it should be booked. I think that's the most logical way to book it. Certainly will be fascinating if it does happen. Randy Orton currently is in the Royal Rumble match, but as much as speculation has said that we will get Orton versus The Fiend at the Royal Rumble in some sort of stipulation match, it's not been booked to now. I personally wouldn't do it. I don't want a 5-hour show at the Royal Rumble. We've got, I believe, 3 matches and 2 Royal Rumble matches. That for me is long enough to make a 3-hour, 15-minute pay-per-view. That's the length I want it. I don't want it anymore. So for me, I'd strictly keep it to the Rumble. There is a small bet that perhaps The Fiend will return on Raw this week, pull Randy out of the Rumble, and they'll have a match this Sunday. But I hope it's at the Rumble during that moment, because as I say, if Randy's got the ring to himself, perhaps it's someone like a Chad Gable coming to the ring, maybe, you know, a John Morrison or someone like that currently, who The Fiend can take out. People aren't so bothered about. Perhaps even someone like The Miz or whatever. Miz doesn't need it at the moment. He's got money in the bank, but he certainly can complain that his opportunity was taken away from him the next night on Raw. Gives that heel that sort of opportunity to whine a bit. For me, that would fit quite well. Come and take Randy out of the Rumble, and then boom, you've got yourself set. That feud can continue going on. And hopefully, as The Fiend returns, as I said this previously on the channel, I want a darker Fiend. I want someone that's going to really be even more unstoppable than he was before. Because The Fiend, he'd gone down a couple of levels after that loss to Goldberg last year. And of course, now we sort of become a bit softer in that character. We can really go darker. It can go like how Kane went back in the day. Go a level or 2 up to really boost him back up to then eventually when he'll probably fall down the pecking order again. But certainly, right now, you've got a real chance to do some slight tweaks to the Fiend character. And I'm excited to see what they're going to do when they bring him back. Mike, at 10 Habs Mike, with the next 2 questions now. We know where the next 2 WrestleManias will be. It seems that WWE is rotating between the same cities. Should they be going to different cities? And question 2, do we think the Women's Rumble winner will come from the number 1 spot? Interesting. Charlotte Flair would be the logical choice. It goes in with the first question, which we will tackle first. WWE tends to rotate between Florida, New York, New Orleans, Texas. Last WrestleMania to be in the north part of America was WrestleMania 23. It would be nice for Canada, England to get WrestleMania. Do you agree? And it gets boring seeing WrestleMania in the same markets. I must admit, I like where WrestleMania is. A lot of the time, I always, I like a Florida WrestleMania. I do like a New York WrestleMania. I do understand these are big markets for WWE, which is why they do tend to go back. But I do agree with you. I would like to see them mix it up. For someone who is English, who's now doing this video for you now, the opportunity for me to go to a WrestleMania is a lot more difficult than perhaps it is for people over in stateside. Certainly is a lot more of a financial commitment, not just for the WrestleMania tickets, but for everything else that goes with it. So for me, I would like to see it in different locations. And you mentioned England there. I really want to see WrestleMania one day come to the UK. I don't see why it couldn't happen. I think that it arguably can get a bit boring being in the same markets. I think for people even stateside, they would like to see it in different locations. And like you say, WrestleMania 23, the last time it's not been in any of those locations, and it would be then, WrestleMania 40 would be the next time. So that's 17 years that WWE is going to the same trusted markets. I know heavily rumoured is Las Vegas to have a WrestleMania, and I think they would have had one had we not had these announcements now. So I think WrestleMania 40 probably will be Las Vegas if I had to predict right now. I would like to see it go to other places. I do actually, you say Canada. I feel sorry for that person that was at WrestleMania every year saying WrestleMania in Vancouver. Hopefully one year they will get their wish. Yeah, I mean, I want to see it go in different markets. I certainly think it would be interesting to see, and definitely, for the fan bases. I think, for example, if it comes to the UK, I think we would be absolutely phenomenal as a fan base. I think the thing that puts WWE off doing that is the time difference. Obviously, for us, if we were to have it, which would be perhaps 7, 8 p.m. UK time, 5 hours difference for the Eastern time. That means that's 2, 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Perhaps they're not so keen on that sort of idea. But hey, I mean, from the UK market, we have to stay up till 12 o'clock at night to start a show and probably watch it till 4, 5 o'clock in the morning, depending on how long those shows are. So it would be nice for us to get that opportunity. But obviously, I think the American market will always come first for WWE, which doesn't exclude Canada. But we'll have to wait and see. I would like to see it go in different locations, even though when we do get WrestleManias in those locations, I do usually enjoy them. Back to the Royal Rumble and the Women's Royal Rumble, I think that it would be quite fun to see a Journey person in the Rumble. I don't think Charlotte Flair is winning the Rumble this year. I think she had a time last year. I do think, though, she will be a lengthy spell in the Rumble, and I think it would be fun to see her like perhaps at the number 1 spot going through, but I actually want her as number 3, and of course I'm going for a clear, obvious reason why. Ric Flair won the Royal Rumble back in 1992, arguably the greatest Royal Rumble ever. If you haven't seen it, then please make sure in this next 7 days you go on the network and watch the 92 Royal Rumble. It is a phenomenal Royal Rumble match, from just the entries, the star power, the story, to commentary. You know, Bobby Heenan and Gorilla Monsoon are amazing on commentary. I think Bobby Heenan's probably one of the real standout highlights of his entire career, and he's had a great career on commentary. But yeah, going back to that, for that reason alone, I'd like Charlotte to be the number 3, last in there for like an hour or so. I think that would be quite fun. I think fans would be against it. Of course, it's too much Charlotte Flair, you know, as it always is. But she would be someone that could hold the Rumble together. But another name that could hold the Rumble together for me is Bayley, and I think she would be a more popular choice. I think Bayley potentially, if I had to make a prediction now, I would not be surprised if she was entry number 1 or number 2 for the Rumble kicking off, because she could carry the match. Perhaps Bayley as a heel and currently Charlotte as a face, maybe together they could carry the Rumble through as well. Maybe it could be like almost like a 2006 Royal Rumble where Triple H and Rey Mysterio were there at the start and they were there in the final 3 at the end. Maybe we get something along that sort of line with those two, because I don't see either of them winning the Rumble. But or Bayley I see as an outside option potential, but certainly not a favourite. And if I had to push come to shove, I definitely would say I probably wouldn't go with either of those names coming to win the Rumble. But for me, I do feel that the winner this year will be someone later in the Women's Rumble and potentially the men's as well. But I do see that we will get some journey people in those matches, and I think Charlotte definitely a logical choice for that. Dylan Ketchum with our next question now here on Ask SCW. Who do you want to face Roman Reigns at WrestleMania? Fantasy The Rock. I would love that to happen. I want to see The Rock go against Roman Reigns. I think it fits the Bloodline storyline perfectly. Head of the table, tribal chief. We needn't say more. I think for me that would be perfect. I think the actual backup option, I can't believe I'm going to say this, but I've mentioned it already in the video, Brock Lesnar. I really want to see that. I want to see new stars being built, don't get me wrong, but I think whoever faces Roman currently at WrestleMania is going to lose. I think Roman, this is an important year for Roman because he can solidify himself not just as the guy, and he's always really been the guy, but we are accepting it a lot more. And with this heel character, I really think he can solidify that heel character as the number 1 heel in wrestling and really is the most over thing going. And it will really put a babyface over the day that then they beat Roman Reigns somewhere further down the line. Maybe a Big E, maybe it's someone like Keith Lee. But for me, I would turn around and say that Brock Lesnar, I think, would be great for the Paul Heyman element. I think it's a great storyline. I think it's a money match. It's worthy of WrestleMania. We've had it a couple of times before where arguably I'd say that, you know, the face-heel dynamic has been the wrong way round. But for Brock Lesnar, if he is to ever come back, the one storyline that's left for him to do is to have Paul Heyman, you know, being in someone else's corner. We have seen it back in 2002 before, but to see it now, I think would definitely be quite fresh, and, you know, there would be investment in that storyline. Like I say, The Rock is the one I want, but I don't see it happening. John Cena, arguably, is probably another big money match you could do because John Cena will be going for that 17th world title. Yeah, I mean, we'll have to wait and see if and when that does come around. I don't want to see Goldberg in that position. Spear versus Spear doesn't do it for me. If you are going to do that, then do Edge, please. But for someone from the current roster, I would say The Fiend, purely because of the fact that I would turn around and say that The Fiend versus Reigns was teased just before the draft with Alexa Bliss there, turning back at Heyman and Roman all that time ago. That definitely would be a fun, dynamic twist of a match if The Fiend was to make a surprise entrance in the Rumble, win it, and maybe he could go for whatever title he wanted. Definitely would fill a void on SmackDown because, like we say, it feels that at the moment we want to have this big babyface taking on Roman Reigns on SmackDown. Feels SmackDown lacks on that side a little bit, but perhaps someone like The Fiend would fill that role very well. But maybe Daniel Bryan's there as well. Seth Rollins, if he comes back as a babyface, I'm sure we've spoken about that previously on the channel. That will go over really well. And Rollins versus Reigns, of course, ex-Shield. That would be popular. But yeah, host the names now I'm giving you now. There's a lot of great ideas there. Pick your favourite. Let me know in the comments. But if I had, of course, the actual choice of anyone that would come in and do it, The Rock, of course, would be the one. But then perhaps next best choice for me, I probably would go with Brock or The Fiend. George Jones with the next question now for someone Ask SCW. If you were to book a babyface counter stable to Roman's Bloodline, who would you choose and why? This is a really interesting question because, of course, Roman's bloodline right now is looking strong. We're expecting Jimmy Uso to come into the mix. I would like Jimmy Uso actually to come in as counter to the bloodline and actually be forced to join it the same way that Jay did. Perhaps if we could get Jimmy versus Jay as a storyline, because Jay now has really built himself up. I'd like them to do that with Jimmy as well. But to look for a stable that could do so, it feels like a lot of people that would be thrown together for the time being, but say Kevin Owens is in the mix because he needs help, and Damian Priest is not the guy, according to the sources, if you believe those storylines that are going on or the rumours going around. I would like to see Sami Zayn turn face. Something I would like to see somewhere down the line, but I am loving what Sami Zayn is currently doing on SmackDown, particularly this past week with the old chain work going on to the barricade. That was freaking awesome. I really enjoyed that. So at the same time, I'm not sure it would kind of work, but it would be believable because Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn have been best friends in the past. If Big E was to get that opportunity, I mean, you could say if it was Roman versus Big E, Usos versus the Street Profits, they could align for a short term, that could happen. But I do think if Big E was to be in this sort of mix, I think a lot of people would turn around and say that why isn't it the New Day? Why is Kofi and Xavier not on SmackDown and the Street Profits on Raw? It would make, again, no sense of why we broke up the New Day in the first place. But I think it's a lot of people that would be thrown together against the Bloodline. Perhaps a common interest maybe of superstars. Shinsuke Nakamura, of course, was taken out as well by the Bloodline very recently, which Cesaro hasn't really come to the aid. So it could be interesting. We might find ourselves, and I do sort of half believe this with Elimination Chamber. I've said it previously. I think Roman could find himself in a sticky wicket in that chamber. Perhaps him, maybe has Jay with him, but maybe has 4 people that he's really annoyed over the last few months that want to take his championship. And I think the lines of Kevin Owens, Shinsuke Nakamura, perhaps even Adam Pearce might find himself in there. There could be lots of different dynamics of superstars that could be finding themselves aligned together going for that championship. But what I will say just about before we move to the next question, go and check out George from Jonesy Chats Wrestling, a great YouTube channel, and I've actually appeared there a couple of times recently reviewing an episode of Raw, which I think was about a week and a half ago. But today I actually recorded the recent SmackDown episode. We did a review for that on the channel there, so go and check out Jonesy Chats Wrestling. It's a fun review. We touched also on a couple of big talking points this week as well, including Undertaker and plans going into WrestleMania with superstars that could be coming back for the event as well. Of course, now it's a 2-night event. Make sure to go and check that video out. It's a lot of fun. Give him a subscribe as well. Does great content over there. Make sure to go and check it out. Austin Whitley with the next question now here on AskSCW, asking, how do you think the mid-card titles will be handled at WrestleMania 37? Very interesting question because, of course, a lot of talk is done with the who's going to win the Rumble and the Championship matches. But what about those mid-card title matches? Of course, the Intercontinental Championship and United States Championship, a lot of legacy between those belts, very important, and will have a key role on the show, perhaps kicking off both nights. And, of course, nothing sets off a show very well than the great first opening match of the evening. So these could be very important. And looking at it, I think with the United States Championship, I think is the one that I could do easiest, quickest. Lashley has been unstoppable. He's been someone that's, took out everyone. He's only lost 1 match since June. And of course, arguably that match shouldn't have really been lost either, and of course he's been even more dominant since that loss. So I think Lashley will put someone over at WrestleMania and give that United States Championship to someone else. My current prediction of what I think will happen with that, I do think it's going to be Keith Lee. I think Keith Lee is the right guy that can beat Lashley for that US Championship. Let's not forget, before Keith Lee became NXT champion, he was also North American champion and was doing a great job as a mid-card champion. So that's always good to see. I think Keith Lee is the future of WWE. But even when you go back to like John Cena, for example, before he became champion, people saw it in 2003 and thought that he could be the guy. But WrestleMania 20 in 2004, he won the United States Championship. That set him on his way for the rest of that year and came to the next WrestleMania. He was in that main event spot. So I think personally that would be a good booking move at this particular moment. It would be creditable. It would be something that would be believable as well for Lashley to lose it to someone like Keith Lee rather than losing it to someone that's 205 in my opinion. So I think that one could really work. As for the IC title, depends if Big E still holds it. Apollo Crews is in the mix, but Sami Zayn is the one that I think will be still in and around that championship picture. He's obsessed currently with the Intercontinental Championship. I wouldn't be surprised if Sami had it back at that point. Perhaps we either have Big E versus Sami Zayn once again. We have maybe some sort of ladder match, which is a conspiracy against Sami Zayn. That would be a lot of fun as well. Certainly would do his documentary a lot of favours right now. But yeah, it could be an interesting twist. Maybe, I mentioned I'd like to see, Sami and KO together. I know Sami will probably stay as a heel. Maybe they face off against each other. Maybe it feels like the right time to have KO versus Sami at a WrestleMania. I certainly think that would definitely be a lot of fun if that was to be one that was to be booked. Noob and Co with a host of questions for us next time here on Ask SCW. I'm going to go with the first tweet now. Who do you think will win the Women's Dusty Tag Team Classic? After what happened to Asuka versus Bliss on Raw this week, do we think Asuka will change her character? And what did I think of Reggie's performance on SmackDown this week? As for the Women's Dusty Tag Team Classic, I've got to go with Raquel Gonzalez and Dakota Kai for me. They are the longest term tag team of the teams that are in this tournament. I do think that if the winner is going to get a tag team championship match, I think that these two are the ones that could not only just pose a threat, but I think they could win the championships and bring them to NXT. I certainly think that they would be the right team, looking at the brackets, in my opinion, to win the Dusty Women's Tag Team Classic. And especially as well, we've got Mercedes, Martinez. We've got Toni Storm as well going against Io Shirai, it feels, at the moment, after that NXT Women's Championship. Despite the fact that Raquel Gonzalez is ready for that championship run, she could go into this tag team for the meantime. I think it would work. Her stock is really high. There's nothing to say that she can't go against Io Shirai at any time further down the line. So I certainly would like to see Dakota and Raquel win this tournament. I'll talk about Reginald next, if you don't mind. We're going to skip to question 3 because I think he did great. I think he really surprised me. I love the fact he was flipping around the ring. I think the intergender match was tasteful as well. Like I said, if those matches are booked correctly, I think that they can be a lot of fun. This was a lot of fun to watch. Sasha Banks' win was never in doubt. Yeah, I thought Reginald, he definitely surprised probably a lot of people. He's done a few of these flips before, but certainly the way he did some of the stuff, guy seems very talented, and it's great to see he's getting this opportunity on SmackDown in this role as the sommelier for Carmella right now. Have to see what will go on for him further down the line. Maybe it'll be someone that's been on 205 Live. Maybe it'll be the NXT Cruiserweight Championship picture at some point. Maybe he just ends up being, permanently, along Carmella's side on TV. Certainly be interesting either way. It certainly adds a great dynamic to Carmella's character right now. I like the role that he's played, and I actually think as well, he's doing pretty well. He did actually, when he's interfered in a couple of matches, there was my slight nitpicks, but it does add to what's going on with Carmella. It does make her matches more believable that she could win, especially as, she's currently had this gimmick change. She's got him in the background, the champagne. Going against Sasha Banks right now, you would have said if this was Carmella 6 months ago, there was only one winner and it was quite obvious. But it feels right now that Carmella's on the same level, and Reginald, he does play his part in that. So I think, yeah, he's doing well overall, and I particularly enjoyed the match this week on SmackDown. As for Asuka, well, I was hoping that we were going to get some character change, something after this, but unfortunately, from Raw to SmackDown, we got Asuka appear on SmackDown this week, didn't we? And teaming with Charlotte Flair, we got nothing. We kind of got this Asuka that was almost as if nothing happened on Raw, which for me was a very big disappointment, and I was happy to see the teamwork of Charlotte and Asuka together, because they've kind of been doing their own separate things, which makes it a bit pointless that they're tag team champions really at this point. But I would say that I would like to see maybe some miscommunication, maybe a bit of dissension, maybe just a bit of fear in Asuka, maybe a lack of confidence, something in that performance that would have said that Alexa Bliss had an impact on Asuka. Maybe we'll see it on Raw. Maybe there's still time to see it. Maybe as Alexa Bliss isn't in the house, Asuka felt comfortable. Maybe that's the way they're going to get around it. But we'll have to wait and see what's going to happen on Raw this week. I certainly would hope so. I'd like the idea that Asuka could change a bit with, what's happening, like with Alexa Bliss, like we've seen with the Fiend's character against other superstars. But judging on SmackDown, we haven't had it so far. So we'll have to wait and see what's going to happen this week on Raw. Next question is then from Noob and Co. Who will face Kylie Ray for the NXT Women's title next? And who will be in the AEW number 1 contenders tournament as evidence of the US and Japan flags? As for Kylie Ray, she defended the belt this week against Ginny in a great match as well. I would like to see Eva Valkyrie get her opportunity. She's doing very well in NXT UK and does scream to me a future champion. So for me, if I was going to make a quiet shout, I think it's time. I think it's time we get Aoife Valkyrie in that picture to take on Kaylee Ray. I think that she's doing very well, Kaylee Ray, as champion. She's been champion for a long, long time now, but perhaps Aoife Valkyrie could be the one to take it from her. I certainly would like to see that matchup. As for this number one contenders tournament on AEW, yeah, like you said, we've got some potentials that could happen here. We'll have to wait and see what it's going to lead to, but definitely with the Japan flags, it perhaps means maybe, just maybe, could Rio be coming back? Could there be an opportunity where we can fly them over and fly them in? We certainly have had some people come from the UK now. They've been able to come back in. Of course, Pac has returned to Dynamite now as well, as we've seen with NXT as well. Pete Dunne has been in NXT again. So there has been opportunity to get superstars in. Riho, of course, was a very popular one as well. And, of course, other superstars were coming in from Japan as well. So it will be interesting to see what will happen with that. As from the US, there are some potentials. The Impact roster, that would be fun to see, wouldn't it? We've seen NWA come in, but now we've got the partnership with Impact. Certainly would be fun to see some of them in a tournament if possible. Certainly would add something to Dynamite if this is going to be on Dynamite. I hope it's not another YouTube show. I want to see this weekly on Dynamite personally. 1 or 2 matches even. I think it would be epic to see that. But one other name that I would throw in there, of course, who's left Impact Wrestling, is Taya Valkyrie. That could be a potential one that could happen if she is to sign with AEW. I would say right now, if I had to make a prediction, I think she will be in WWE. I wouldn't even be surprised to see her as a surprise entrant in the Rumble match to, then be going on with her husband afterwards on Raw. Yeah, certainly could be a potential. There's lots of ifs and buts with that, but I can't wait to see the brackets of how it's going to be. So fingers crossed we're going to get some surprise names in there, and hopefully this is going to be the start of really building up the AEW Women's Division. Rich, with our next question now here on AskSCW. Do you think we'll see any knockouts on Dynamite? I really do. I mean, if you look at now with the current dynamic we've got now with AEW and Impact Wrestling and how they're putting things together. They started off with Kenny Omega. That is the big get, it feels, then for, Impact Wrestling, and of course headed that pay-per-view, aligned in with the Good Brothers. We brought the Good Brothers over now to Dynamite. So that's been great. It's definitely something that's helped both of them. Probably thought they'd both gained something out of it. Now it's time to sort of go underneath it. Where else can we help? What's going to, help both shows? And we've seen that with Private Party going over to Impact this past week. I think that certainly is something that can be really good for Private Party, and we're going to touch more on them in the next question, so I'll hold that for now. But for Dynamite, what helps them the most right now, isn't really tag teams, probably isn't singles wrestlers. Right now for them, it is the Knockouts division. That would help because, of course, the women's division AEW is okay, but I think a lot of people would say that is the weak spot. And there's certain knockouts that could really benefit if they're not in the championship picture on Impact. They can come over to Dynamite. Perhaps you could have maybe Akara Shida against Jordan Grace or something like that. That would be awesome to see right now going into the next pay-per-view, you could even say. But if they come into this number one contenders tournament, like we discussed in the last question, that could be a potential as well. And I still hope deep down that we will get Akara Shida against Deonna Purrazzo. That is a match I really want to see. So I hope it's going to happen somewhere further down the line. But have to look, of course, we've got the next pay-per-views for AEW and as well for Impact Wrestling. We've got Revolution for, of course, AEW, and we've got Rebellion for Impact Wrestling. 2 very interesting title names of pay-per-views. Does make you think that this partnership, this cross-brand promotional work is going to continue. And I really do think that in the next few months, if we don't see even sooner, we will start seeing some knockouts on Dynamite. But who do you want to see? Let me know in the comments below. Next question then coming from Mark Q World Order. What was your reaction to last week's Impact segment where Big Money Matt and James Storm returned? Do you like the storyline setup, or does it not matter since it's cross-promotional? And bonus, what did you think of Private Party's turn the next night on Dynamite? Really like this question, and we mentioned Private Party in the last one, and now I can talk it more depth in this one. With Big Money Matt, I really like it. The dynamic with these guys really worked well. It was like that undercard that could really benefit on both shows, because Private Party aren't really getting so much time right now on Dynamite, but they did the next night, which we'll come on to in a second. But the fact that they could come over, they're not a team that's going to be in the championship picture right now in AEW. They're quite a way off. But the fact they could come over to Impact, where Impact arguably, they've got a good tag team division, but you could say that it has lost a little bit of its depth in recent months. Of course, we had TJP and Falaba seemingly split up now and gone their separate ways, and we've got TJP back into the X Division Championship picture. As well as that, we've got the Dinas, they've split up. The Rascals have left. The North, of course, now no longer together with Ethan Page leaving the company. It feels like that Impact could do with another tag team or two, and Private Party coming in now to go and have that tag team championship opportunity against the Good Brothers really made a lot of sense. With the big money mat as well, he was entertaining. It was a lot of fun, and it really played as well with both sides of the storyline, because big money mat, he gets more money through this appearance of being on Impact, which was mentioned on Dynamite in the previous week. So there's continuity on a storyline across two shows, which made a lot of sense. So for me, I really liked it, and I'm enjoying the cross-promotional. I think it makes a lot of sense, and I think it benefits everyone in the long run. As I said in the last question, I think that AEW, perhaps in return, may get a few of the knockouts competing on their show, because it will help benefit them. They're looking to see, rather than saying which show is better than the other right now, is what superstars on our rosters can we send over to, perhaps they're not doing so much on our show now, but can improve the other show who are still of some name worth. And I think that that's really cool. I think if Private Party were to make a number of appearances in Impact Wrestling, I think it would be fantastic for them as a team, because they will get more experience. They'll work with great teams like the Good Brothers, and they'll come back and they'll do great things on Dynamite. They came back the next night, and for me, it was a surprise that they had the heel turn, but I really liked it. They kind of, they decided to cheat for the first time in the storyline and actually realized, hey, it works and we like it, and there's a different way. And of course, with the Impact, show that goes on, when people from AEW come over to Impact, they're the heels, they're the bad guys, and they cheated to win this week with young Jerry Lynn getting involved in that tag team match against Chris Sabin and James Storm. So it kind of does all fit together. It did take me by surprise, but I kind of liked it. So yeah, I'm really a fan of what's been going on with it. It doesn't bother me, it's cross-promotional. If anything, it enhances what's going on for me. I'm really excited to see what AEW and Impact are going to throw together on the table. As for James Storm, give him a quick shout. Well, Alex Shelley's not around at the minute, is he? So I'm wondering if this is short term. I'm hoping, I'd love it to be long term. I want James Storm to stick around. He's, of course, an Impact original, TNA original, if you will. And I think he has stuff to offer the product. I do like James Storm. I like his in-ring work. I think he would be great for that upper mid-card to main event status. I think he could work quite well in that sort of area. But we'll have to wait and see if it's short or mid-term. It certainly is helpful right now, because Chris Sabin needed a tag team partner. And I think it did well. I mean, they teamed very recently in the December pay-per-view that had an Impact Plus. So, yeah, this for me, it ticked all the boxes. I quite enjoyed it. Dan Williams with our next question now. Mr. DWE, go and check him out on YouTube now. He asks, do you think Sting will actually wrestle at Revolution, or will it be a cinematic match to make him look good? For him, he would rather see him in the ring in a proper match, as he doesn't really like cinematic matches. Before we start this question as well, I want to give a shout out to Vigilante as well. Also ask, what can we expect from Sting in ring at Revolution? Cinematic matches definitely are hit and miss. We've had some good ones. You look at the Boneyard match, Stadium Stampede. We've had some bad ones as well, which just haven't connected for me as well. So I would agree with you that cinematic doesn't always work. But for me, the thing I want the thing that keeps Sting healthy. That's all I want at this point. Sting, for me, to see him in the ring again, to close his career on his own terms, I think will be special, and it is nice. It's never fun to see someone where their career is taken away from them, where it's a bad spot in the ring and they don't get to stop when they want to. So for that reason, I'm okay with seeing him in the ring again, or however they want to do the street fight. But I do think it will be done cinematic style, if I had to predict. I think it's the safest style to do this. Unless they find a way to do the match where, say, for example, Sting isn't around. Perhaps the match starts earlier than it's meant to, or whatever, I don't know. Sting appears late in the match to help Darby Allin, rather than it being a team effort from the beginning. But of course, Sting with a baseball bat, I mean, he hasn't really got to do too much wrestling with that, has he? A street fight probably benefits already to the fact that he probably won't have to take so many bumps. I mean, Darby Allin will definitely be taking the bumps for that team. I don't think anyone needs to question that on that sort of way. But I do think cinematic is the more likely. Am I looking forward to seeing it at Revolution? I certainly am. I think it's going to be a fun, put together match, however it's done. But yeah, health and safety comes to me first off, and I think that's what I think is most important here for Sting. But I totally respect your feelings of wanting to see a normal match. Perhaps they'll find a way where they can still do that. I think we'll learn more over the coming weeks. Vigilante with our next question now here on AskSCW, asking what I thought of SmackDown. Is it the A show or not? I really think that SmackDown has become the A show in WWE. I mean, it's remarkable to think that there's actually, Raw and SmackDown are booked by the same company, because I find Raw really difficult to watch, and I find SmackDown always a joy these weeks. The last previous few months since Roman Reigns turned heel, made his comeback, become the champion, and with Paul Heyman as well, SmackDown has just been a joy to watch week in and week out. I even would argue and say that it's more must-see than NXT at this point. I really just am enjoying it. I think it's the complete show. It's got the package of good in-ring wrestling. It's quick, you know, with the matches and stuff, and you always want to see more. They give enough away for you to be able to say, I want to see what's going to happen next, or see it again. Where Raw, you get these 15, 20-minute matches, and you think, well, we've got a rematch and I saw everything last week. And it's got, you know, consistent storylines which have actually got progression normally each and every week. I mean, of course, as I mentioned there, Roman Reigns and Paul Heyman. We've got Sami Zayn with the conspiracy theory going on as well. Bianca Belair and Bayley this week made a really entertaining show out of that obstacle course. I mean, that should have been a train wreck, but actually was a lot of fun. It's kind of taken as well the obstacle course from the NXT days, from the season format, when it had people doing it on the show there, which didn't really connect with NXT. That wasn't going to make you the next best superstar, but here really worked with the character work for both Bayley and Bianca Belair. So yeah, I mean, SmackDown for me is definitely the A show right now when it comes to WWE. There's no argument in it. If anything, I think Raw should be taking notes. This is how you book a show. It's really good week in and week out. I definitely would pick SmackDown over Raw any day of the week right now. Next question coming from New Japan Pro Wrestling Reporter. Here's one for you. Where is Jon Moxley? He's somewhere in the States right now. I see where the question is coming from here. Of course, Kenta has been waiting for this United States Championship match for a long time now. And of course, he's carrying this briefcase around. I'm not sure when we're going to get it. Obviously, with the pandemic, it's very difficult right now for people to make this sort of commitment and travel over. Quarantine rules as well. But if Dynamite are able to get perhaps someone over from Japan, maybe for this number one contenders tournament they got for the women going on, maybe, just maybe, they might be able to get Moxley back in the conversation. He certainly had some sort of video package, didn't he? We had had some words at Wrestle Kingdom to give. So hopefully, somewhere down the line, we will get Jon Moxley versus Kenta, but certainly has been a patience game, but has been very well put together, it feels, in the meantime. I'm just surprised that New Japan haven't stripped Moxley of the championship. I know that perhaps some would say it's kind of unfair with the current situation going on in the world, but other promotions have done this with champions, and of course it's good to have that belt on television. That's more important than the superstar carrying it, in my opinion. Kenta could have been perhaps winning that tournament instead of having a shot, could be actually the champion, and when you're able to do it, then him versus Moxley could have taken place that time, and he could turn around and say, I'm the real United States champion or whatever, and Moxley then could have a message from him saying, well, no, you're not, I've not been beat for the belt. But either way, I think it will happen eventually, but it's just when people can get people over, and I think it's a patience game right now. Last question this week coming now here on Ask SCW from BCC WrestlePod. Who do you think will eventually defeat Volta for the NXT UK title? Really good question, this one. I still think Ilya Dragunov is the guy to do it. I just think timing is the problem. With the current situation in the world right now, we can't have fans in arenas. You look at Volta and you look at Kaylee Ray, both have been long-term champions, and we talked about Kaylee Ray earlier in this video. It feels like if someone's going to beat them for the championships, it will mean something a lot more if it's in front of fans, that big special moment, the career-defining moment. And I think that the fact that Ilya Dragunov couldn't have that moment, and when he had his match, it was an epic 5-star classic. I think he will get another opportunity, and I think that potentially at that point, that's when the championship will change hands. It's hard to look through that roster right now and see someone that would actually do it. I mean, perhaps Joe Coffey, Dave Mastiff. They're great, talented guys, but they've been in the ring before with Volta, and they've just not done it. Ilya, I know, is another one of those, but I know Triple H is very high on him, so I can just see potentially somewhere down the line he could be the guy that does it. I just think it's a matter of when fans can get back in these, these arenas to come and watch these events. I think that's when we may start seeing some championship changes in NXT UK. But it wouldn't surprise me either if Volta was to hold this championship like an old school champion back in the 70s or 80s. We're used to seeing championships change every few months to no more than a year. It wouldn't surprise me if Volta was to be that guy, was to hold the championship for 3, 4, even 5 years, be like the longest reign champion in definitely in the modern era. It wouldn't surprise me at all. But that's all from me here on Ask SCW this week. Hope you've enjoyed as always. Thank you for checking out the video if you're watching on YouTube. Also for listening if you're listening on podcast form. Please subscribe or follow. Please share with a friend. Of course, word of mouth does go a long way as well, helping this channel grow. Of course, just over 750 subscribers as well. Would love to now get to 800 on YouTube, so go and support on the YouTube channel as well. Would really appreciate it. Make sure as well to go and check out, I was on Jonesy Chats Wrestling, as I said, the SmackDown review this week. Go and check that out. out. As for coming up this week on the channel here, of course, it's strictly Royal Rumble. The Royal Rumble predictions will be dropping on Tuesday. I'm looking as well to book the men's Royal Rumble from entry number 1 to 30. The whole match I'm going to book. Of course, that will include who comes in at what point, the storylines, surprise entries, returns, NXT, much more. So make sure to stick out. Plenty of reasons to be involved here with SCW coming up with the coming week, particularly on the YouTube channel. So make sure to hit the bell on the notifications to always, you'll know when those videos drop. But that's all for me. Thank you for watching or listening, depending where you've been. Thank you very much. Have yourselves a great day. I'll see you guys next time.